Where are you calling from today? Like,
I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
not quite sure where that is. Well, I know where Atlanta, I know where Atlanta is, I guess.
Yeah, right above Florida.
Yeah, like
Fuck Florida. Mm.
my geography is terrible. So
Hey, mine too.
oh, in that case, welcome to the show.
Hello!
It's a very relaxed intro. I apologize. I don't have like a formal like sign on like a lot of people do.
Yeah,
I
I love it. Let's keep it genuine.
mean, I try to as much as I can, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty simple. All righty. I have a very simple first question to lead us into this. Um, who are you?
Who am I? I am a human. I'm
I mean,
a
that helps.
post
Yeah.
grad college kid. I just graduated from Boston Conservatory at Berkeley, and I'm currently trying to make it as an artist. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and my biggest goal is just to kind of try to spread some joy, especially now more than ever. Oh, Lord knows. it's, it's dark right now. So, yeah, I'm a composer, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, and I'm an actress.
You hit like all the boxes for the things you need for drama, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it is it Alyssa or Alicia?
Alyssa.
Okay, I was trying to figure it out. You have a quite unique name,
Oh,
which
thank you.
I've only ever known one other person with the last name Payne, uh,
Yeah.
but it was spelled different. It's quite unique. But obviously, yeah. So I found your work through YouTube, as you do,
Oh, nice.
and I was actually trying to think, like, what was the first thing I think I saw, and I think it was your chicken and horse song.
Get out of here. Is that really the first thing you saw?
I think I found it like at random and was like, oh, what's this? And then I ended up like looking at you up more, and it was timed around the same time as like your album came out,
Yeah, yeah.
which yeah, so it kind of informed everything.
Oh
Well,
my,
not my impression of you. I mean, there's a duck on the wall behind you, but
oh my goodness. Oh yeah. That's so crazy. Yeah, wow. It's all I love hearing how people like first heard of me or like their favorite song of mine because there's in so many different genres and whatnot.
I feel like we should inform the audience that you have an album. Can you tell us
Oh,
about it?
yes. Hey, ladies and gentlemen. I got an album. Oh, don't look at my mid.
There's no shaming here. We're a shame-free place.
It's music theater standalone songs. Some could say written about my life. And they're all orchestrated by the fabulous Nick Podakai. Um and it's on Spotify, Apple Music. It's more music theater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, yeah, that's why I reached out because I enjoyed it.
Oh, that means so much. I just assume no one has heard it. So when people reach out to me and they're like, "I love it," I was
I
all
do
like,
that with a show.
"Yeah." I love that. And what a great tool to use, if something like inspires you or you like it. I constantly am in people's comments being like, "Oh, this is so amazing. This brought me so much joy." Because you never know. Like I was on Instagram Live. The reason figuring out a
Mhm.
time was a little tricky is my aunt just passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And oh, thank you. And it's just been a hard week and I don't really go live at all, but I went live because I was just like distract for a minute.
Yeah.
And someone commented, they were like, your album got me through a really rough time. And just reading that, I think
Mm.
meant the world to me because we can all think of that art, either if it's a TV show, that got us through a dark time, or a movie, or a song that got us through a breakup. And it was just so, I mean, that's like the biggest compliment, the biggest honor is like hearing that. And then hearing you be like, "Oh, I loved it." Like that's just such a cool thing.
Yeah. I think as artists, it's easy to forget how far some of your stuff can go and kind of touch, especially I mean, if you get doing it for a while, and you know obviously you're trying lots of things and doing lots of things, and over the time your style might change. So you might look back 10 years and be like, oh well, I'm not into musical theory anymore. I'm into you know nothing but improv. Everything's improv. And then when you do find someone who's like, oh yeah, I remember this from 5 years ago, and it was a great little song, and I sing it to myself every so often. I think, yeah, there's a human connection with art, which is easy to forget when you get just making it constantly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's so funny about changing genres because um for those of you who don't know, I like it. So I started on YouTube kind of during COVID, but I was really sad in high school and I started writing these musical comedy songs and I describe them now as more of a Bo Burnham, Rachel Bloom, silly songs about being friend zoned or thinking Tony the Tiger's hot. Yeah, just silly things like that. And how that kind of took me to these more theater songs where it's like, who are you singing to? What are you going through? And it's fun to think, yeah, what if that brings me to like, I don't know, hip hop writer, pop
Yeah,
writer.
you never know where you're gonna end up. I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I find it interesting as well, like that you use Bo Burnham as a point of reference of like someone you're like using it as like a genre reference, whereas to me, I don't see him that way, I guess, but maybe that's the age difference. I don't quite just didn't hit like right at the right moment for it to kind of land in the same way.
Yeah.
All righty. So how long did your album take you to make? I'm curious.
How what?
How long did your album take you to make? Is it like a long process or
That is a great question. You know what's crazy? um,
everything?
everything. So I kind of had the songs. I spent a minute. What order would be good? I had the songs, and there are a few songs I look back and I'm like, should I have done? I guess gone through and edited a little more. I felt like I just kind of had it and was like, let's put it on the album, and it just like
Right.
put it on there. But let's see. The weird part, honestly, is it probably took about like 3 months.
Yeah.
But you start battling, and I'm sure you feel this way just as an artist, but I really started dealing with, I hate to be like demons, but in a way, it's like I kind of had this finished product,
Mm-hmm.
and then it took another like 3 months to want to release it. And I remember I did the vocals and they were messy, so I knew I wanted to redo all the vocals, and so that kind of took an extra 2 months, and it only took 2 months. Like I was just doing one takes. Music theater, you
Yeah.
can't do a bunch of vocal editing, so I'm just doing like one take through. Um, but I just remember, and I try to tell a lot of people that is like, making an album, making a podcast, making whatever your art is. I have so much respect if you can just get it out, because I think getting something out is its own battle, because we love to hold our art hostage. I love to hold my art hostage. And so anyway, not to ramble, but to answer your question, I guess overall, like I said, 3 months to make, but
Yeah.
wow, I want to say another 4 months that I was like, oh, is it really
Yeah.
worth?
How do you get over that though? Like as an artist, I mean, like you say, I always think it's kind of like Titanic, not Titanic. Oh, yeah, yeah, kind of like Titanic, like an iceberg. I was
Yeah,
focusing on the wrong thing. I don't know the name of the iceberg, but where you see the public sees the last 10%, and they didn't see the 2 months you spent worrying about whether it was good enough. And even the creation of it can be, like you say, pretty rapid. Get it done in 2 months, and then you spend a month polishing it and getting through that. I think that's something a lot of artists deal with. So how do you get through?
whew,
As
that's
someone who's done it,
I'm like, have I gone through it? I
it's
think,
out.
yeah, not only just hearing like, I think the phrase "don't hold your art hostage," like I said a
Mhm.
second ago, that was kind of eye opening to me. I also think, this is less. This kind of goes this way, and then you can't get to your second version until you've written your first version,
Mm.
and you can't get to your third unless you've written a second. And when you start looking at that, you start to have a little more grace, I think, towards yourself. And I finally got to a point where it was like, you know what? release it. And then guess what? If my next album is better, it's better. But just allowing things, and I think that's the frustrating thing about art in general. I guess everything actually, everything can always be a little better.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think that's that if you get too stuck on that, it's just a drain. And that's where I got stuck. Is I was like, well, these lyrics, well, maybe they're not even that good. Well, maybe I should rewrite the whole thing. And it was like, you know what? Honor the Alyssa that wrote that a year ago when she was in a breakup and allow it to be what it is
Hmm.
and post it. I also think I read this book called The Inner Game of Tennis, and it's about tennis. It's not even about the arts, but it's all about the two parts of our brain, self one and self two. And self one is the part that does stuff, and self two, its only job is to be like, is that smart? Is that a good decision? Is that this? And it's imperative for survival, but learning how to really calm down that self two.
Mm.
And also as like, if you're a singer too, if you crack on stage, allowing that to just be something you surpass over. You did it, and guess what? You got to move on. You can't get stuck at each moment in your life where you want to, just give up and throw everything away. So I don't think I even answered your question.
We go all around on this.
I know. I got my coffee because I saw,
I love the fact that when you emailed me and I was like asking you for topics, you gave me like a bunch of topics, and then 2 emails later, you gave me different topics.
I know. I probably look I know on my website it's like a messaging function. So
Right.
sometimes I write back like messaging, but then I'm like, oh, it's probably emailing this poor man.
I was just getting emails. I was just like, but I find I have a very like clear goal when it comes to guests, which is I'm going to attempt to reach out in like whatever form I can. If they have an email address, I'll just drop them an email. If they have a website, like, help function, I'll go through that because that's the way they've chosen to communicate with the world. So, and it saves me sliding into people's DMs, which always feels wrong.
I love that. Yeah. Ooh.
I'm curious. You mentioned there like the idea of um, releasing work which you're no longer kind of in that headspace for. So like writing a breakup song when you're going through a breakup and then releasing it much later on. How do you find that as like a feeling, I guess?
Um, well, hmm. I think let me know if I'm answering your question or
Okay.
not. Be like, hey, that's not what I asked. I think
Go on.
something about training as like an actor and as a music theater major and stuff. I think whenever I write a song, the most important question to myself is who are you talking to and what are you trying to say?
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter if, I went through a breakup like months and months ago. If I'm able to just step into that mindset of who am I talking to? What, like I have a song called Winning This Breakup, and it's a comedic song, but it's all about this girl who's telling her ex, like, I am so successful and I'm so much better than you thought I was. You didn't think I could do this, but look at me, I'm doing it. I'm thriving. And then she starts describing a bunch of pyramid schemes and like so it's got the ironic twist of like, oh yeah, she's
Yeah.
not really thriving. But being able, finding the truth within each song. Is that kind of, oh wait, I don't feel like I answered that well.
No, I think like that alludes to it. I mean, you kind of saying that as a actress, as a performer, you able to kind of tap into that previous feeling to create work.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I also think I'd love your opinion on this. I personally like listening to albums more than I like singles because I kind of like just being able to click on something and walk away and let it play versus singles, which is why I've kind of gone more the approach of making these EPs versus releasing singles. But I'm always
Yeah.
curious what people think. I mean, what do you think would be more interesting if like, you know, break up, write a song about a breakup, release it? Or do you prefer albums and bodies of work that kind of tell a story?
I think it varies piece to piece. I'm very much an album kind of person. If I hear a song, I'll try to listen to the whole album because I think that kind of gets lost nowadays in terms of like the internet. You do you see sound bites, you see clips which are on memes and TikToks and whatnot, and I think it removes the storytelling element which you get with an album. And I
Mm.
always like to find out if the creator has kind of done that or whether they've just accumulated like a bunch of songs and said, this is, you know, the EP. Because that's why I did find interesting about yours was the fact that you went for an album rather than just producing a YouTube video and saying, "Oh, I made this one," and then a few months later, "Oh, I made a new one." And it's a different content stream to what I think most people are used to these days. I don't know.
Whew. Yeah. Content. Isn't that crazy?
It's
The
a
way
dirty word.
I know. I saw a video once where it's like, oh, the worst thing that's happened to this generation is confusing art with content. I
Mm.
don't really care that much. In fact, in some ways, it's helpful going back to what you said about how do you get over that fear of releasing. TikTok, say what you want about it, but it really helped me get over that. When you can just post a rough idea of a song
Mm.
every day, just like a little rough idea of a song, then you get more comfortable with releasing something that's not perfect or you know. And I think getting in the habit of that is nice.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I've yet to join TikTok, but that's just because I've never got really around to it, and Instagram is just there.
Yeah,
But it does serve a purpose in terms of allowing people that catharsis, especially people who don't necessarily create on the regular. You know, like people who didn't grow up with I want to be an artist, I want to be an actor, I want to, you know, go perform. I think it gave them an outlet,
yeah,
which is where that kind of confusion then started to happen between people making content because they were trying to, you know, just make some product and people who were just like, well, I'm just here, you know,
yeah.
watching the world go by.
Mm, yeah. Well, now we live in well, let me not be all depressing, but yeah, we kind of live in a where I know I have a lot of artist friends who they feel like you cannot be an artist unless you have a TikTok
Mm.
and unless, you know, unless you have a certain amount of followers. And that's where the whole like we make fun of. I make fun of. I'm literally one of these people who's like, please listen to my music, but constantly, you know, you scroll and you just see that meme of like, did I accidentally write the song of the summer? And it's their song, and you just have all these musicians who then they're creating more, you know, to make a hit instead of something that they
Yeah.
want to say. And I don't know. I have seen it be a little damaging to artists and stuff. Also very helpful, you know. But yeah, if you don't have TikTok, maybe don't because I have. If I could, I would delete everything in a heartbeat. Oh, in a heartbeat.
I've thought about it a couple of times. Honestly, I have no idea what I would put there.
Yeah.
Like that's the main issue. Like, I mean, I have Instagram where I can post still images, and most of my artwork is still. It's not kind of animated or anything like that. And then I was like, well, TikTok, it would be my face, which I post enough of that to do with my podcast anyway. Nobody wants too much of that in anyone's space or place. So I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
So,
By the way, your artwork is absolutely gorgeous. You have such a gift. Please never stop creating. I was scrolling and I got so stuck. I was like, how?
I have too much free time, maybe. I don't.
Bored in New Jersey. I get it.
New Jersey's entertaining. It's got things going on. Yeah, I'm just across the river. I don't know what Georgia's like, so yeah. Why? What do you live down in Georgia then? You.
Yeah, well, sort of. I'm about to, like I said, I'm about to move up. I'm
Mhm.
starting this BMI. It's where like Alan Menken started. It's for music theater writers. It's in New York. I'm about to start that. But I just graduated, so I'm down here with my parents. I'm teaching piano lessons and leading worship at a church. Just kind of save up and it's been good. You know,
Yeah,
I promised it wasn't ideal, but it's been
I
nice.
think everyone has that gap where they end up living back at home briefly.
Yeah. So anyway, look, I got this for us. It was like $20. It's probably a waste of money. It says
That's
on it.
beautiful. That's great. I maybe I need one of those on the outside of the building.
Yeah.
Just
Uh,
confuse people walking past, like, what is that? It's like it's just someone's house. Don't worry about it.
for real.
All right, my leg is just falling asleep. the worst feeling in the world. So, I mean, musical theatre wise, that was on your list of topics of
Oh yeah,
potential discussions.
I know. I hate talking about me. We talk about you. But yeah, music theater. I've done that my entire life. I went to music theater,
Mhm.
performing arts high school. I was working professionally before that. High school was a little toxic. Kind of made me not want to do it anymore. But then, of course, the only school or the best deal I got for school was like a conservatory. So then I just kind of kept doing it, and I sort of fell back in love with it sophomore year, and then COVID happened.
Mhm.
So all the college kids got like sent home for 2 years, and so now it has been this weird thing where, gosh, I mean, I've been so lucky to be able to perform my original work places, and I still, I signed with some agents, and I'm submitting for stuff, um, but yeah, it's weird. I'm not performing as much, and even though my love hate has kind of moved a little with it. It's very weird when you've done something for so long of your life and then you haven't done it for a minute. I do feel like I'm missing something,
Yeah.
and it breaks my heart for just all of us actors and stuff. We're such a meme of like starving artist. um, but when something brings you so much joy and you don't get to do it for a while. So right now I'm waiting. I just submitted for some dream roles and we'll see. But it's just weird when everything's on a laptop. It used to be you go
Yeah.
in a room and there's always an energy in a room. You can work a room. But now everything you submit is just like, hello, my name's Alyssa. Here's a song. So um it's definitely very crazy. But I love music theater. It's what got me into writing music theater. Um just the idea of if you don't know how to say it, sing it, what about you? What's something you've done your entire life that it would feel weird not to do it?
I I don't know. That makes
There.
it sound like I've done nothing my entire life, which is true. I probably have done nothing my entire life. I don't know, drawing, probably. I draw a lot and I've always drawn. So that's,
Yeah.
that was my introduction to art and how I kind of, I mean, it's how I start every idea, regardless of what I'm doing. I always end up doing a drawing or a sketch. So yeah, I can imagine that would disconnect. Why do you think you gravitated towards musical theater rather than, let's say, kind of like stand up or anything like that?
Oh, that's good. Um, I've been doing it a while. I think it sounds so I don't want to sound like a but because I had been doing it for so long, it came fairly easy to me, being in really advanced dance classes and being able to sing different genres and it felt like because there was a moment in my life, especially when I started writing those comedic songs to deal with depression and stuff, where I was like, oh, maybe I should just go be a comedian in Chicago. But then it felt like I was wasting this voice and this dance ability. And so then I was like, well, what if I'm just a singer? And but then you have the acting and I do think there is something beautiful. This is where I start to sound like, oh, artsy, but there is something beautiful about telling a story on stage. And I mean, what got us through COVID? Movies, art, TV shows. Like I said, I've been dealing with losing someone I really loved this last
Mhm.
week. I went and saw this musical. Oh my gosh. It's known as one of like the saddest musicals, which I'm usually not into, but I got free tickets and I was like, I gotta go see it. And I already told the person who gave me the tickets, like, hey, I might need to step out. It hit very close to home, what had kind of been happening the last week. And but I went and it was the first time in a long time I've been in a theater. And there was this moment where it was like, wow, there's something so what's the word? Cathartic?
Cathartic? Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Where when you are able to just sit and all of your troubles kind of transport onto the stage and you're able just to watch something and get lost in it. This is a long way to say that I think there's something kind of magical about the theater that you can't really get in a stand-up show. And I think stand-up is awesome. It has its own world, its own audience. But I think that's what got me more into music theater is just and then a big compliment I've gotten on my album is like so many people have said self-expression, the human expression. And I think there's so many people, they don't know how to feel what they're feeling. We don't teach that. I wish we did, but we don't teach how to, what is this feeling of anxiety? What is this feeling of, suffocation? What is this feeling? And when you see someone sing about a feeling that you're not able to describe, there can be something so therapeutic about that, which I think is just so cool.
It's interesting. I mean, from my view, whenever I've thought of musicals and musical theatre before, I don't think I've ever thought of it from the point of view of catharsis in
Yeah.
that manner. But I think that's mainly because when I picture musicals, I picture the amount of work which it takes to get it to the stage.
Yeah.
And I think from how quickly I make work, I'd think of it like, well, I feel like I'd lose something. It seems more planned, kind of like a film. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to write a script, you're gonna have to write these songs and then rehearse it all and practice and go and go and go.
Yeah.
And I just don't think I've ever thought of it that way, of just like, yeah, this is just a way to get something out, just the same as any other art form.
Yeah. And it's a weird balance because that's one of my pet peeves. Um, because you can also tell. See, now I'm like, seriously, give me a little sign if you're like, hey, you're rambling.
Rambling's good. Have you
um,
watched this podcast? It's just
I
it's
know. I
90% rambling.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want you to have to search for topics. I'm just throw it all at you. There was once I remember as an actor, as a performer, I would get a little. People would always ask, "Why do you do this?" And people would always say, "Cause I love it. I love it. It's for me. It makes me feel good." Which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But for me, it was always more of a because I want the audience to escape. Especially, I did a lot of musical comedy. The Drowsy Chaperone was one of my favorite shows. I've done it like 4 times. But the show itself is literally, I mean, it's about an escape. It's just this hilarious musical comedy. And there's when Shrek was on Broadway, they interviewed the main guy, Brian Darcy James, and they're like, "Why do you do what you do?" Um, and he even said that he's like, "You think I put on all this green paint every night and these, this plastic on my face for me? Like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it to bring joy to other people and to have people and escape." And I do think that's more of how I feel about it. And that being said, what you were saying about artists, I think there's a balance, but I've also seen a lot of work where it felt very, oh, this was just the writer trying to get something off their chest. And
Yeah.
to be so blunt, I'm like, it's not good. It's no, that's so bad. God, cut that. But it's not enjoyable. It's not. You weren't thinking of anyone but yourself when you wrote this.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a diary. It's a diary entry, and I think some things are meant to stay in your diary. Um, However, you can form stuff from that and turn it into a beautiful show. But I don't know. I've just, especially in college, you see a bunch of work where it's like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I studied film and photography at college, and I can completely understand the. I mean, I'm probably guilty of it at some point of
yep.
making, an ego piece where you're just like, yeah, no, no one understands me. I'm gonna make a really pretentious film, and it always turns out bad. It always is.
Well, maybe bad is the wrong word. I should have said that. But no, I love that. I love that. And you studied film. Wait, tell me about that. How was studying film?
I wouldn't do it again. Oh. No, I enjoyed it. So my course was kind of unique in the sense of it was called contemporary lens media. So
Mm,
it was a combination of photography and film, and you were to study both, but from kind of more from like a fine art capacity than making feature films or short films capacity. Um, and it was 3 years, and I did it, and I came out, and I got a grade, and that was good. But it sort of killed a lot of passion for things because I'm not a fan of some educational institutions.
yeah, I love what you said on your YouTube, your intro video. You say something where it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna butcher it. Help me out." Where it's like, "If you love it, do it." Or
Yeah, it's create things which you want to create.
yeah,
That's yeah, and I think that's like you say. I think that's where you should start with
yeah.
everything you make.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a super interesting. When I first started writing those comedic songs more on my YouTube, you can tell, the first four I did. And I remember brainstorming this way. What's something everyone can relate to? Being
Okay.
friend zoned, being left on red, Netflix. Those are my first like three videos. Ice cream, everyone kind of likes that. Boom, four things. And it wasn't until COVID where the more weirdly specific I got to me, something that I was like, oh, no one's gonna relate to this, but I relate to this, people have a stronger relationship with. And I was in a Zoom call. I was watching Sarah Bareilles talk about stuff, and I don't know if you know Sarah Bareilles and her
Yep.
stuff, but she has a song called "Love Song" that was like viral for
Right.
the longest time in 2000. It was everyone's hit. I'm not gonna write you a love song because you asked for it.
I do know this
Need one.
one.
Everyone, apparently she wrote that about the music industry. She wrote that to her publisher, being like, I'm not gonna write another love song. I wanna write about what I wanna write. But you know how many of us people were like, you wrote that song about me because my boyfriend was pitying me. So it's so crazy to me that if you actually, what you said, if you write about what you wanna write about, it's gonna have an even greater impact. Um,
Definitely. Yeah. I so well, I think you kind of mentioned there, like when you start with broader topics, like that's a good place to start. But the more internal you get, the more people do relate to it because it's the stuff which they don't know how to bring out and
yeah,
they don't know how to discuss. One of the comments I get on most of this kind of like the solo ones I do, where it's just me rambling for 30 minutes because I find that entertaining,
yeah,
is someone will come along and it's like, oh yeah, you said that thing which I've thought but I've never said. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess, that's nice. It's nice to know that there's other parts of brains which are thinking the same.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
What
then
school
obviously,
did you go to?
say again.
What school did you go to for film?
So I went to Lincoln University in the UK
Okay, nice, nice.
because
Oh,
that's where
cool.
I'm originally from,
Yes.
hence the accent.
What do you like better, the UK or?
So I'm having fun at the minute, describing my experience in the US in a very bland way and annoying New Yorkers because I feel like they expect me to have a very controversial opinion, either positive or negative, and I just
Yeah,
keep saying it's okay.
I love that.
So how are you finding New York? It's okay. It's all right. Like can't complain, but it's not the best thing I've seen in the world. And I find that worries people. I don't know why.
Especially in New York. Oh my goodness.
But no, it's good. I've been here since July, so a fair while. But yeah, I mean everything's okay. I'm very much I'm on the train until it kicks me off kind of person. So it's led me here this far. I like the UK. I was there majority of my life up until now. So yeah. Have you always been kind of in the area then, or I mean, you mentioned multiple locations.
I went to school in Boston, but besides
Okay,
that, I've been in Georgia.
you have a song about Boston, right?
I do. Ah,
I
good.
did my research. I know these things. I
Yeah.
click YouTube links and Linktree, and I find out what's. Do
Yes.
you find it hard to find new music now, which you enjoy?
Oh. Ooh. A little. A
Yeah,
little. I'm yeah. Yeah. Um, you know how people are like, what do you like to listen to? I like to listen to everything. And it's like, name
such a
something.
cop out answer.
I know, I hate when, but I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit one of those people, like, I like listening to jazz. I love the band Lawrence and Lake Street Dive and Sammy Ray, but I feel like recently I've been on a lot of pauses. And I've noticed the music I listen to really influences my writing, and that can be positive and negative. I used to listen to a bunch of like Mel Brooks when I
Hmm.
first started writing, and I have all these like clever rhymes and musicality. And then I started watching a certain TV show, which the music was good, but it was a specific genre, and then my music started to sound a little. So now when it comes to listening to music, I'm very aware of what I'm listening to, how it's influencing what I'm writing, um, and kind of going back to what we said about TikTok. I feel like, and this is only my perspective, but I feel like there's so much writing now that's more about how can I make this a hit versus what am I trying to say. And just that music just personally, and it has its place, it has its awesome, it has such a big place. But it just doesn't resonate with me. And I've been feeling kind of stuck on like, oh, what do I listen to? I just click the same thing every time I get in my car, and now I'm sick of these songs. What about you? Do you feel that way right now?
Yeah, I think the reason I asked was I was having a conversation the other day, which was around kind of music tastes, and I mean, I used the answer that I listen to a little bit of everything, because I have no shame. Um, but we were discussing it, and we were saying it becomes a lot harder to actually find stuff which you like and you relate to, because there's always that top layer, like you're saying, of people who are making songs and making music to make a hit, to make, a sound bite. They'll think about the hook, and the hook will be the main part, but the
Yeah.
rest of the song just seems to kind of drop off. And the music which you grew up on has obviously moved on genre wise, depending on whatever music you were listening to when you were a teenager. That's usually what resonates with you the biggest. So, 10 years down the line, when you something like, oh, well, I really want to go find some ska music,
Yeah.
where would you find it? So it makes it seem like it's disappeared from the world, when in reality, there's lots of ska bands out there who are making things. You just can't find their work.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that's so, yeah, oh, amen. And I also think it is so beautiful how accessible music is now. And that's the goal for everyone to be able to make music. That's the goal. It's so accessible. But in some ways, that makes everything harder too, because everyone can make music. There's just so much, which is such an amazing thing. But like you said, there's so much that even these Apple Music, Spotify, it's just so hard for it to find its way to you. Um, yeah, and I've noticed like, yeah, the more not undercover, the more underground artists have some just incredible stuff, but they're not writing vague songs about summer, and so then their music isn't really getting to the top. It's all ugh.
I feel like that's a perfect like album title. Just vague songs about summer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe that'll be my next one.
You'd have to like counter, like subvert expectations. So it'd be called vague songs about summer, but it'd all be about winter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But no,
Yes.
I agree. I think it's interesting to see. Like, I think that's why live performance becomes so important, like open mics and small gigs and small shows, to kind of catch the people who you wouldn't necessarily run into, and
Yeah,
the music which you wouldn't necessarily listen to. I was chatting to a guest recently. We were saying one of the main problems now is because everything is obviously so algorithmic and so structured. Like you say, you have to feed whatever's going viral at the minute. It becomes so much more important when someone shares something with you that you click that link and find out what it is,
um,
because it probably would have never made it to you.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious what you think about this too. We're also living in such a weird time now where it's not just the song. You you have to love the artist now. It feels like to me, I'm curious what you think about this. But it's like being a good songwriter isn't enough. You have to also be quirky and fun and relatable, and post you have to have a personality. It's kind of what we're running into right now with I was like, should not bring this up. I should have taken my ADD medicine or something. But it's kind of the Kanye thing, it's like
Mm.
I'm not gonna listen to someone's music who makes an entire group of people feel unsafe, who's not a good person, and that's a very extreme
Yeah,
example of what I'm trying to say, where it's like, there was a time where it's, if you like the song, you listen to the song, put it on a playlist. But now we're living in a time where it's like, unless I can fully support the person making something, and I honestly, I'm kind of in the middle. Part of me is like, oh, the song's good, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting now with social media how that's added another layer of, or there's people who don't really write the most, complicated music. They just write for fun, but there's such a fun personality that their stuff is at the top, while these underground artists who are focused more on the music and less about posting and don't really want, them out there, their stuff kind of remains at the bottom. It's weird how social media has added that layer. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I can go two ways on it. I think I agree it's amplified that layer. I think I even think it used to exist. It was a thing. Like I always use when you think kind of like back when film was kicking off and like the old stars and the starlets, their whole appeal, whether they were a good actor or a good actress or not, was the fact that they were popular.
Yeah.
And that resonated with people. You might think John Wayne's terrible in whatever he's in, but because he had a good personality when he was in interviews and had the whole shtick, someone would go see his film.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been there, but social media just turned up the volume with it and said, "Oh, hey, if you want to be on our platform, you're going to have to do that." And I like say I kind of hate that because you do have to put extra effort in there, and if you've got a personality which isn't necessarily outgoing or bubbly, you struggle with it. And like you say, like especially artists who are very about the craft,
Yeah.
very about making music, very about making art, paintings, whatever. If they're very about that, they're never going to do that. But people might appreciate that as a kind of like a gives them an edge of mysteriousness. I don't know. I mean, you could say this podcast is exactly that. I mean, I make art, but I have a conversation every week, and
Yeah.
that gives a personality edge to it. And then, yeah, like you say, the other side of it is, do you detach music and do you detach art from the artist at any point?
Yeah.
The guest I had before, we were talking about the recent stuff with the Dilbert creator who went on a racist rant, so everyone's kind of dropped him. And then obviously there's the J.K. Rowling stuff. And can you enjoy the things you used to enjoy, or do you have to just disconnect from that and go, okay, well, I'm not going to buy anything new, but the old stuff, it gave me, good feelings to go do those things. But we were saying you have to. There's almost like an extra step where you're like, oh, I like this song. I'm just going to Google them. I'm just going to make sure they are who they say they are
Yeah.
before I start enjoying it full time. Yeah, it is a double-edged sword. Well, I don't know if I'm into it, but then
Yeah.
at the same time, I do miss personalities, like art personalities who were larger than life. I feel like there's a value in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the '80s needed to happen again.
Yeah.
I think I guess maybe that's a good example though. Like, so obviously now we have personalities, and TikTok and Instagram feed that. But the '80s had all of that, but we didn't care so much. Like, mm,
It is weird just how cancel culture in general is just, I think, the death of art. I do. And clearly I don't mean like when you say something anti-Semitic or,
yeah,
racist, like that, we're not, that's completely different. But it's been very interesting to see. I mean, now when artists create in a way where you're just so, I don't know. What are we talking about? Personalities. Oh Lord, this is why I don't drink coffee. I saw your little thing that's like pour yourself some coffee, but now
yeah. I think I think I know what you're saying. It's kind of, and stop me if I'm wrong. Obviously, is kind of it's it's put a lot more pressure on artists to censor their own work before it even goes out. There's no more you create something and then push it out into the world because you have to think 10 times more about like how it might be interpreted as it gets through. Do you worry about AI at all in music?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, that's what I was saying. Like the '80s, I feel like
Hmm.
that's the biggest difference. Is like we weren't so quick to cancel like in the '80s, but we also couldn't see every move in the '80s. You know, you didn't have these '80s musicians on like Insta stories, live streaming their
Hmm.
every move, like getting coffee. You know. To answer your question, um, I was the vice president of an improv team in college, and I had to get off because, well, COVID happened. That's kind of why it ended. But to answer your question, yeah, I think everyone my age, this is what's so interesting. You go to everyone one on one, and I've noticed a lot of us have the same perspective on a lot of,
Hmm.
but as soon as we have that group mentality, I don't know. I have noticed for myself, there's just that extra voice that's a little louder. Like I'll literally write a lyric that's like, I don't know, maybe something about like the birds are singing in the sky. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but is this not going to age well because global warming? And then what if there aren't birds? And then people are think that I'm ignorant because like I said that birds like are going to be singing, but birds don't all sing. What if there's a bird that doesn't have vocal cords and that bird can't sing? Oh, that's so mean to that bird. But it's such a genuine thought, and it comes from such a genuine place where there's this fear, and then you see other people get, you know, canceled for these little things, and I don't know. I think it's like safe space. I wish we could
Hmm.
think of the world more as a brave space because I think just the word safe space, we've made this idea that everyone will always feel protected. And in reality, that's just not the case. And you want art that's fearless, you want art that like your artwork, your drawings and stuff. Oh, I love them. And then you can't see that anywhere. Not no one has what you have, your amazing artistry and I just wish we could create more of a brave space because then that would inspire artists to just push out. And guess what? If people don't like it, people don't like it. But that doesn't mean they have to like block you and like make fun of your your makeup. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I agree. I think it's almost like a lesson which I think comes over time when you're creating stuff. Like, I mean, I'm guilty of early on in YouTube trying to make stuff which was more other people. It was more like I was doing vlogs, I was doing, like comedy things and jump cuts every 2 seconds
Yeah.
because who's going to pay attention to someone sitting still for an hour? Um, and then you kind of get to a point where you just don't care. It doesn't become about getting an audience anymore. It just becomes more about the catharsis because that's the bit which made you happy, and that's the bit which you really like gripped onto, and that's kind of why my intro is what it is because I was meeting so many people who were so worried about making things and were so worried about putting stuff out there and not meeting the needs of the audience, and I was like, well, that doesn't matter because as an artist, your job is to make what an artist makes. And if people hate it, then maybe they were meant to hate it.
Yeah.
Not everything's for everyone. As long as you made it and you enjoyed it and you thought it was cathartic, then that's the important bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just why do it. I mean, my concern, why I asked about kind of AI art is, like you say, if we're leading to a situation,
You
you
said
know,
AI art?
yeah,
Totally misheard you.
it's fine.
I
No,
thought you said your art.
no, I mean that's fine. Yeah, and for no, like thinking about AI art and auto-generated things, my worry is that for someone like you and your industry, where personality is such a big thing because it's a person on stage and it's a performance and it's interacting, that companies will basically move towards auto-generated stuff. So they don't have the problem of someone going on an interview and saying something offensive because they never have to worry about that because there's a machine and they can turn it off.
Yeah, there's we were all worried about robots like taking over the world. I remember I had a teacher who was like, but you know what's crazy? Robots will never be able to take over art. This is the one thing they cannot take over. And then like the last year, all this AI like write a song that sounds like a certain artist and they do it. I don't know. It's crazy. But
I think the one comforting thing I think I find is, and maybe this is just me placating myself, when I see AI work and see people who are doing it, my brain, I'm just like, yeah, but it's not art.
yeah.
Like, it doesn't fit my definition of what art is, and my definition involves the catharsis the artist feels in the process of creation. So
Yes.
if you skip that, then you've not made art. You've just made content.
Hmm. Yeah.
Maybe that's the message we need for young people today.
Ah, yeah.
So what's next on your list of creations? Do
You
you
know,
have a list of creations?
I'm like my stickies.
I did wonder.
Yeah, my plan to take over the world. This is for a little cabaret I was working on. Um, just so when yeah, having a little like one person show I can do. I like I said, I really love writing standalone songs. What got me into writing, especially everything on my album, I noticed as a performer and as a female identifying performer, there wasn't a lot of material. Lots of times when you have an audition, they're like, we want you to bring in a comedic song. And I just noticed a lot of comedic songs written for women in the theater are not that funny, or they're overused. The ones that are really funny are overused. And then the other ones are just kind of based on these stereotypes. There's so many songs that are like, LOL, I'm sorry that your mom died. Just very,
Yeah.
they're not real people. And so that's kind of what got me into writing this music theater is I wanted to write real women, real people. And so that's why I've kind of been in writing standalone land. But now what's next? I've been really passionate recently about what would it look like to write a musical about something where all the money to that musical goes back into that thing. To be more specific, I have a huge heart for foster care, and there's a movie called Instant Family, and I don't want to add to the pandemic of writing movie musicals, um, but I would love to be able to write a musical about something like that. I've never seen something like that on stage, and then allowing all the money that that makes to be poured back into foster care. So creating these musicals that have more than one purpose. I've also been talking to some movie studios about doing more movie musicals and writing for that kind of stuff. So right now I'm just kind of in the middle. I need to keep going. That post grad has gotten me where it's so easy to just sit back and like watch TV. But I really need to step on the gas. Not having a schedule has ruined me. Not having a class, this. Oh my gosh.
I feel like that's a universal experience for anyone who leaves college or university. You come out and you're like, there's no rules.
Yeah,
So I don't have to do anything.
I know. I've become so lazy. Oh my god. Even my agent, like my first few self tapes I sent out, I'm like, these are not good. These are not my best work. Like, um, but yeah, so that's probably what's next. Just trying to figure that out. Yeah. How about you? What's next for you? What are you up to?
Oh, I don't do anything.
You're like me right now. No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, I always say that if I don't do anything. I'm at the problem right now where I have two or three projects which are in progress. So I make zines as well as kind of like there's a comic which I'm drawing, and then just writing things. I had the intention to start a book and write a bit of a book, and I hadn't done anything with that. But then at the same time, I had a new idea recently, and I'm like, oh, do I work on that or do I do the things that I was meant to do as I go? Like that's my problem. I got too many things.
Yeah. I feel that.
It
Yeah.
must be harder for you though, because yours is quite a long process. I can crack out a sketch in an afternoon.
That has been a little weird. Yeah. Like I'm about to apply for a grant. My school sent out this like alumni grant and I was debating what do I apply for, writing a musical or my next album.
Mhm.
And there was this bit of like, good gosh, I don't know how much you read about musicals and stuff, but like they all take like 13 years to really develop. And that's not even writing it. That's after it's written. That's 13 years of just getting it on its feet, workshopping it. It's a very, is it, yeah. So, um, I don't know. I say follow the passion. Like I said, I didn't really want to write musicals, but everyone on in TikTok was like, "When's your musical coming out? When's your musical coming out?" I'm like, "Why not? I try."
Yeah.
I wasn't really passionate about it, so then I was like, "I don't want to do this." But then I got that foster care idea, and now all of a sudden there's a whole new passion around, you know, writing a full work. So same as you. It's like,
We've all got too many things, too many bits.
yeah, for real.
I mean, just to kind of round this out. I mean, so you mentioned your postgrad, which I mean, don't know how long that means you were in college for. How long is that? It's different country to country, right?
Yeah, so I was in college for 4 years. I
Okay,
graduated in 2022, so
so you're only fresh, as it were.
fresh out of school.
What I'm going to ask you a default question. What advice do you give young people who are pre postgrad?
Oh, keep your eyes on your own paper. Don't compare what you're going through. Everyone's path is different, and I know that sounds so vague, but the older I get, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm a writer too. I'm not just a performer. So for me to compare my journey to, you know, someone who just performs, it's gonna look completely different. Really use school. It sounds so lame, but like, go to the speeches they do. Like, go to the
You
stuff.
sound so unexcited about all of this. It's the least convincing.
Jealous. I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back. But most importantly of all, something I've always said: really learn. And I would stand by this. I practice what I preach. I really do when it comes to this. Really learning how to be happy for people around you. It's so easy to be like, OMG, congrats on getting the role I wanted. Like twitching. Um, but I learned that, I just kind of discovered that on my own in high school. When you are able to really, truly, from such a genuine place, be happy for the people around you. Ooh, life is much more enjoyable, and happier, and and healthier. You
Yeah,
feel healthy when you can actually genuinely be happy for the people around you, and not envious, and not holding grudges and being mean. And so maybe that's my advice.
I think that's great advice. I think like looking at your own paper is the advice most people always give. Like
Yeah,
carve your own way, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the addition of just being happy for other people doing what they're doing
yeah.
is, yeah, it's almost as important as doing your own thing.
And the only reason I look so unexcited is because all of it sounds so cliche. Like, you know what I'm saying? It all sounds so cliche. Be yourself. Like, oh my gosh, if someone else says that to me, I'm gonna flip a table.
Whereas
Um,
it was just the cadence was very much along the lines of like you should eat healthy
yeah,
and you should
yeah,
exercise. It's just like, but this is social stuff now.
yeah. I also think finding a good hobby that has nothing to do with what you're doing. That's something I struggled with for the longest time. My hobby was playing piano and writing songs from performing. But now that that's kind of it, like I've learned recently, I don't really have a hobby. So like
No.
I like fun earrings, but that's not really a hobby. So maybe that's the other thing I'd say. Find a hobby.
Find a hobby, find a disconnect. This is always a good, yeah. But yeah, I completely agree. You, as creatives, I think we have a habit of enjoying something and then trying to make it bigger than the thing that it was, which you're enjoying, and then that ruins it.
Yes, 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 100%. Yeah.
Luckily, we don't enjoy doing the podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one last question,
Yes.
which I'm asking all the guests this year because I'm starting a chain there. Who should I talk to next? And it
Oh,
can be anyone. I will try to reach them in one way.
what do you like to talk about?
Well, I let the guest pick the topic. We talked about musicals today.
That's
That's
true.
this is the crux of the podcast.
Um, like Tina Fey. Okay, let's
I can try.
um, there is this brilliant. It's similar to me, so I understand if you're like, I don't really want to talk to another writer. Hey, this girl talked about herself the entire time. Um,
This has been the most musical episode I've had in a while. There's been singing, there's been tunage.
no, and I'm sorry for. I felt like I've hosted things before, and I remember I just wanted the person to talk a lot, so I didn't have to come up with stuff. So I totally rambled on a lot of these, and I apologize if I.
There's no need to apologize. There is no structure to this, apart from I start off with 4 simple questions, and I don't always use them all, but they're there just in case.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah. Oliver Richmond,
Arthur Richmond.
and I can even email you that. I don't know much about him, but I admire the heck out of his work. Um, those people online that make everything look like cake, they're kind of cool too. Maybe we'll.
I could find a baker. I've not had a baker on the show yet.
Yeah. Or who else? Yeah. Let me brainstorm. I'll see some people. But yeah, maybe that that's
Richmond. I'll
uh,
look it up. I'll find out. Yeah, I mean, say like because I'm open to all guests and any guests. I figured the best people to ask would be the people I've already managed to convince to come on. So
no, and this is so much fun. I love your show. I love your channel. I love your artwork. Seriously, big fan.
you don't have to lie.
Bad.
Anyway, it's been lovely having you on and chatting to you.
Yes, you
We will round it out there. Yeah, let the people go off and do their own thing, and enjoy other people's successes. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Talk to
you.
these guys later.